Everyone says blood is thicker than water, but when my daughter called me a useless old man at her wedding, I learned something darker. 400 guests laughed at me until her boss recognized the man who bought his company. If you are watching this, kindly subscribe and let me know where you are watching from, and I hope that you're safe wherever you are. My name is Michael Carter, and I'm about to tell you how my daughter's wedding became the day that changed everything between us forever. I'm 57 years old, and for the last 12 years, I've been living a carefully constructed lie. Not because I had to, but because I thought it was the right thing to do. The morning of Sarah's wedding arrived with the kind of pristine Chicago weather that wedding photographers dream about. I stood in my modest apartment looking at myself in the mirror wearing a rented tuxedo that cost me $89. The man staring back at me looked exactly like what I wanted the world to see, a retired factory worker who'd managed to save just enough for a comfortable retirement. Nothing more, nothing less. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the bow tie for the third time. Not from nerves about the wedding itself, but from knowing what was coming. Sarah, my only daughter, had made it crystal clear over the years that she was embarrassed by me, by my calloused hands, by my pickup truck, by the small apartment I chose to live in. She had no idea that I could buy the entire building if I wanted to. She had no idea about anything real in my life. 12 years ago, while working the night shift at Morrison Manufacturing, I developed something that would change industrial production forever. A new process for treating metal that reduced production costs by 40% while increasing durability. I was just trying to solve a problem that had been bothering me for years. I never expected it to be worth millions. When Textron Industries offered me $18 million for the patent, I nearly fell off my chair. Martha was still alive then, fighting the cancer that would take her 2 years later. We sat at our kitchen table that night, holding hands, staring at the offer letter like it might disappear if we blinked. "What do we tell Sarah?" Martha had asked. Sarah was 17 then, already showing signs of the ambition that would drive her to Harvard Business School. She was also showing signs of something else, a hunger for status that worried us both. "Nothing," I said. "We tell her nothing." That decision shaped everything that came after. We paid off the house quietly, set aside money for Sarah's education and anonymous scholarships she'd never know came from us. And I learned to invest. Oh, how I learned to invest. That 18 million became 50 million within 3 years. Then 100. Then more. By the time Martha passed, our portfolio was worth over $300 million. Sarah stood at the funeral, holding my hand, whispering that she'd take care of me now that I was alone. Sweet girl had no idea I'd already taken care of everything, including her. The country club where Sarah's wedding reception was being held sat on 40 acres of manicured perfection. I pulled up in my 2012 Ford F-150, parking between a Mercedes and a Bentley. The valet looked at my truck like it might contaminate the other vehicles. "I'll park it myself," I said, taking the keys back. Inside, 400 guests mingled in a ballroom that probably cost more than most people's annual salaries to rent. Crystal chandeliers threw rainbows across the walls. An orchestra played softly in the corner. And there was my daughter, radiant in a dress that I knew cost $30,000 because she'd accidentally forwarded me the receipt when asking for help with the flowers. I'd sent her $5,000 for the flowers. She never said thank you. Sarah saw me arrive but didn't come over. Instead, she whispered something to her new mother-in-law, Victoria Blackstone, who looked at me with the kind of expression usually reserved for something stuck to the bottom of a shoe. I found my assigned seat at table 17, in the back corner, with the great aunts and family obligations. Sarah worked at Pinnacle Consulting Group, one of Chicago's most prestigious firms. She'd been there 3 years, climbing the ladder with the kind of determination that made me proud and sad in equal measure. Proud of her success, sad that she felt she had to distance herself from me to achieve it. The wedding ceremony itself had been beautiful. Sarah had looked happy walking down the aisle toward Ryan Blackstone, heir to his family's real estate empire. I'd walked her down that aisle, feeling her hand trembling in mine, wondering if she was nervous about the marriage or nervous about being seen with me. Now, at the reception, I watched her work the room like the Harvard MBA she was, introducing people, making connections, playing the game she'd learned so well. She introduced Ryan's parents to everyone. She introduced her colleagues from Pinnacle, her sorority sisters, her Harvard classmates. She didn't introduce me. An hour into the reception, after the salad course but before the main dish, Sarah's cousin Tommy had too much champagne. He stood up, clinking his glass loudly. "Hey, everyone, I want to make a toast." Tommy swayed slightly. "To Sarah. Girl, you've come so far from those days in your dad's tiny garage, watching him come home covered in grease." The room went quiet. I saw Sarah's face flush red. "Speaking of which," Tommy continued oblivious, "where is Mike? Where's the father of the bride? Don't be shy, Mike." Every head in the room turned to look for me. Sarah grabbed the microphone from Tommy, her laugh bright and sharp as breaking glass. "Oh, Tommy, always bringing up ancient history." She scanned the room until her eyes landed on me. "Yes, there's my father back there. My dear old dad who never quite figured out how to escape that factory life. That's why I had to work twice as hard, you know? Some of us inherit success and some of us—" She paused, her eyes locked on mine. "Some of us have to overcome our useless old men who never amounted to anything." The silence that followed was deafening. Then someone laughed, a nervous titter that spread through the room like wildfire. People were laughing, at me, with her, at the useless old man in the rented tux. I sat frozen in my chair, my hands flat on the table, watching my daughter bask in her cruel moment. She had finally said publicly what I'd known she felt privately. But hearing it announced to 400 people, hearing my own child dismiss my entire existence for a laugh, for a moment of social superiority, it was like being stabbed with a knife made of ice. That's when Marcus Webb walked in. He was late, having flown in from London that morning. The CEO of Pinnacle Consulting Group commanded attention just by existing. Tall, African-American, with silver at his temples and the kind of presence that made powerful people nervous. He was Sarah's boss, the man who ran the company where she'd staked her entire career. He was also the man whose company I'd bought 8 months ago. Marcus's eyes swept the room, found Sarah at the microphone, then continued scanning. They passed over me, stopped, and swung back. His expression changed from polite attention to shocked recognition. He walked straight toward me, ignoring the bride, ignoring the groom, ignoring everyone. "Mr. Carter?" His voice carried across the silent room. "Michael Carter? From MC Holdings?" I stood slowly. "Hello, Marcus." "My God, it really is you." He grabbed my hand, shaking it enthusiastically. "Ladies and gentlemen, this man owns my company. This man saved Pinnacle from bankruptcy." Sarah's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. "I don't understand," Victoria Blackstone said, her cultured voice cutting through the murmur that had started. "Marcus, who exactly is this person?" Marcus turned to face the room, his hand still on my shoulder. "This person is the man who acquired Pinnacle Consulting Group 8 months ago when we were facing insolvency. $320 million, paid in full, with the only stipulation being that no employees would be laid off and that the company culture would be preserved." "That's impossible," Sarah said. Her voice was barely a whisper, but in the silent ballroom, everyone heard her. "My father works in a factory. Worked. He's retired. He doesn't have that kind of money." "Your father?" Marcus looked between us, understanding dawning on his face. "Sarah, this is your father. The one you just called—" He trailed off, but everyone remembered the words. "Useless old man." "There must be some mistake," Sarah insisted, but her face had gone pale. She knew I'd never been one to lie, even when the truth hurt. "No mistake," Marcus said, firmly. "I spent 6 hours in negotiations with Mr. Carter's team. He sat quietly through most of it, but when he spoke, it was clear he understood every nuance of our business. He asked detailed questions about our junior consultants' career paths, about our training programs, about our commitment to promoting from within. When I assured him we valued our people above profits, he bought the company." The room erupted in whispers. I saw people pulling out phones, probably Googling MC Holdings. They wouldn't find much. I'd made sure of that. But they'd find enough to know it was real. Dad? Sarah's voice was small, lost. Dad, is this true? I looked at my daughter, this woman who had just humiliated me in front of everyone she wanted to impress. What would you have done in that moment? Would you have denied it to save her face, or told the truth and let her live with the consequences? Marcus, I said quietly, I believe you're mistaken about something. Everyone leaned in, Sarah's face showing a flicker of hope. It was 340 million, not 320. You're forgetting the retention bonuses I insisted on for all employees. The hope in Sarah's eyes died completely. Excuse me, I said. I need some air. I walked out of that ballroom with my head high, leaving behind 400 confused guests, a shattered bride, and a secret that was no longer secret. But Marcus Webb followed me out. Mr. Carter, wait. I stopped in the marble hallway, turning to face him. I need to tell you something about your daughter, he said. She's brilliant at her job, one of our best junior partners, but she's also been telling everyone that she succeeded despite her background, that she had to overcome a father who, and I quote, never understood ambition. I know. You know, Marcus looked surprised. Then why did you promote her last month? What? The directive from MC Holdings to fast-track Sarah Carter to senior consultant. That came from you, didn't it? I shook my head. I've never interfered in Pinnacle's operations. If Sarah was promoted, she earned it herself. Marcus studied my face. You really haven't been pulling strings for her. The only string I pulled was making sure the company she worked for didn't collapse. Everything else, she did on her own. That's actually more impressive and more heartbreaking, given what just happened in there. We stood in silence for a moment before Marcus asked, why didn't you tell her? When you bought Pinnacle, why didn't you let her know? Because I wanted her to succeed on her own merits, to know that her achievements were hers, not handed to her by a father she was ashamed of. She's going to have a very difficult Monday at the office, Marcus said carefully. Will you fire her? No, but her colleagues were all in that room. They all heard what she said about you. And now they all know that the man she called useless owns the company where she works. That kind of thing doesn't go away easily. The parking lot was quiet when Sarah found me 20 minutes later, sitting on the hood of my truck. She'd changed out of her wedding dress into a simple cocktail dress, her elaborate hairdo already starting to fall apart. We need to talk, she said. Do we? Dad, please. She climbed up onto the hood beside me, something she hadn't done since she was 12. Is it true? Do you really own Pinnacle? Yes. What else do you own? So I told her about the patent, about the 18 million that became 450 million through careful investment and strategic acquisitions, about the companies I owned, not just Pinnacle, but a dozen others, the real estate portfolio, the venture capital fund. I told her everything except the why. That would come later. She listened in silence, her hands folded in her lap like a chastised child. When I finished, she asked the question I'd been dreading. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have mattered? Would you have treated me differently if you'd known? Of course. And that's exactly why I didn't tell you. She turned to look at me, confusion clear on her face. I don't understand. Sarah, I wanted you to succeed on your own merits, to build your own life without relying on family money. And you did. You got into Harvard on your grades. You earned your position at Pinnacle through your own hard work. Every promotion, every achievement, every success, that was all you. But I struggled. I worked 3 jobs in college. I ate ramen for months. And you survived. You thrived. You learned the value of work and money and sacrifice. Would you have learned that if you'd known you had a trust fund waiting? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, you let me call you useless. Tonight. In front of everyone. In front of my boss. You've been calling me that for years, just never in front of the man whose paychecks I sign. The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. I saw her flinch, saw the moment she realized the full magnitude of what she'd done. She hadn't just insulted her father, she'd humiliated the owner of her company in front of her CEO. Oh God, she whispered, my career is over. Marcus won't fire you. How do you know? Because I know Marcus. He believes in second chances. But Sarah, every single person at Pinnacle was in that room tonight. They all heard what you said. I can't go back. I can't face them. Then don't. You have an Harvard MBA and 3 years of experience at a top firm. You can work anywhere. Anywhere except the 12 companies you own. 13, actually. I bought another one last week. She looked at me with something between awe and fear. Who are you? I'm the same man who taught you to ride a bike, the same one who helped you with your math homework, the same one who held your hand at your mother's funeral. The money doesn't change who I am, Sarah. It just changes what I can do. Ryan's going to leave. Me, she said suddenly. Why would you think that? His mother has been pushing me to establish financial connections with my family. She suspected you had money hidden away. She's been coaching me on how to get access to it. Victoria knew? She suspected something. The way you carried yourself, she said. The way you observed everything but said nothing. She thought you might have modest investments. She had no idea about this level of wealth. And she told you to do what exactly? Sarah looked down at her hands. To get closer to you, to find out what you had, to potentially seek power of attorney if you seemed incapable of managing your affairs. The betrayal should have hurt more than it did. Maybe I'd expected it. Maybe part of me had always known that Sarah's ambition would eventually turn toward whatever money she could find. Is that why you sat me at the back table? Why you called me useless, to establish a pattern of incompetence? Victoria said if we could show you were losing cognitive function, that you couldn't manage complex finances, we could petition for conservatorship. Your new mother-in-law is quite the strategist. Dad, I didn't want— Yes, you did. I slid off the truck hood, standing to face her. You wanted it all. The money, the status, the power. You just didn't want to have to look at where it came from. What happens now? The next morning arrived with rain, the kind of steady drizzle that makes Chicago feel like it's crying. I was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking coffee from the same mug I'd used for 15 years when the doorbell rang. It was Ryan and Sarah together, both looking like they'd been up all night. Mr. Carter, may we come in? I let them in, poured them coffee, and waited. Sarah's eyes were swollen from crying, and Ryan kept rubbing his face like he was trying to wake up from a nightmare. My mother, Ryan began, has been orchestrating something terrible. I know. No, you don't know all of it. He pulled out his phone, showing me a series of text messages. She's been in contact with a lawyer who specializes in elder financial abuse cases. She was planning to file a complaint next week, claiming you were being manipulated by Pinnacle to funnel money into the company. She was going to claim I was incompetent? Worse, she was going to claim Marcus Webb was taking advantage of a confused old man. She wanted to trigger an investigation that would freeze your assets and put them under court supervision. I looked at Sarah. And you knew about this? I found out last night, she whispered. After everything came out, Victoria pulled me aside and told me the plan. She said it was the only way to protect the family's interests. What family? We're not family. I'm just the useless old man your daughter married. Dad, please. No, Sarah, you need to hear this. Your mother and I worked our entire lives to build something meaningful. Not just money, but values, integrity, respect, hard work. We wanted to pass those on to you more than any amount of money. But somewhere along the way, you decided those values were worth less than a designer handbag and a seat at the right table. That's not fair, isn't it? Tell me, when was the last time you introduced me to someone without apologizing for what I used to do for a living? She couldn't answer. Ryan cleared his throat. Mr. Carter, I want you to know I knew nothing about my mother's plans or Sarah's participation in them. If I had, you would have what? Stopped them or joined them? I would have left. His voice was firm. I married Sarah, not her family's financial prospects, though now I'm questioning whether I ever really knew who I married. Sarah flinched at that, but Ryan continued. I've already told my mother that if she proceeds with any legal action against you, I'll testify against her. I've also told her that our marriage is under review. Under review? Sarah looked at him in panic. You humiliated your father for a laugh, Sarah. You conspired with my mother to steal his assets. You've been lying to me about who you are and what you value. Yes, our 12-hour-old marriage is under review. The meeting with the lawyers took place 3 days later in a conference room at Sullivan Marks in Chen. James Sullivan, my attorney, had assembled a formidable team. Across from us sat Sarah, Ryan, Victoria Blackstone, and their lawyer, Patricia Vance. But there was one additional person I'd requested, Marcus Webb. "Thank you all for coming," James began. "We're here to address the conspiracy to defraud Mr. Carter of his lawfully held assets." "That's a rather dramatic characterization," Patricia Vance said coolly. "Is it?" James pulled out a folder. "We have evidence of Mrs. Victoria Blackstone soliciting legal counsel to file false elder abuse claims. We have recordings of conversations planning to establish Mr. Carter as incompetent. We have proof of attempted financial manipulation." "Recordings?" Victoria went pale. Marcus Webb spoke up. "Every conversation in Pinnacle's offices is recorded for compliance purposes. That includes the conference room where you met with Sarah last Tuesday to discuss, and I quote, how to get the old man's money before he gives it all to charity." Sarah sank lower in her chair. "Furthermore," Marcus continued, "as CEO of Pinnacle, I'm prepared to testify that Mr. Carter is one of the sharpest business minds I've ever encountered. Any claim of incompetence would be laughable." "What do you want?" Victoria asked, her composure finally cracking. I leaned forward. "I want this to end. Permanently." James pulled out another document. "Mr. Carter is prepared to offer a one-time settlement. Sarah's student loans totaling $187,000 will be paid in full. Her credit card debt of $34,000 will be cleared. In exchange, she signs a document relinquishing any claim to Mr. Carter's estate, present or future, and agrees to no contact for 2 years. 2 years? Sarah's voice broke. "You need time to figure out who you are when you're not trying to impress people," I said. "And I need time to heal from what you did." "And if we refuse?" Patricia Vance asked. "Then I pursue criminal charges for conspiracy to commit elder financial abuse," James said simply. "The recordings alone would be enough for an indictment." "You'd send your own daughter to prison?" Victoria asked incredulously. "I'd hold my daughter accountable for her choices," I corrected, "something I apparently should have done years ago." Ryan spoke up. "Sarah, take the deal." Everyone looked at him. "Take the deal," he repeated. "Let your father pay your debts, sign the papers, walk away, and maybe in 2 years you can try to rebuild a relationship based on something other than money." "Easy for you to say," Sarah snapped. "Your family has money." "My family is broke," Ryan said quietly. "My mother has been living on credit for 2 years, maintaining appearances while hoping for a windfall. Why do you think she was so interested in your father's finances?" Victoria's face went red. "Ryan, it's true, Mother, and everyone needs to know it. We're 6 months from bankruptcy unless something changes." The room went silent. Then I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. "Marcus, what would Pinnacle pay for an exclusive consulting contract with Blackstone Properties Commercial Division?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Given their portfolio and expertise, perhaps $5 million a year." "Draw it up. 5-year contract, full payment up front." "Mr. Carter," Victoria started, "I don't want your charity." "It's not charity, it's business. Pinnacle needs real estate expertise. Blackstone Properties needs revenue. But the contract comes with conditions. You drop all plans regarding my finances. You stay out of Sarah and Ryan's marriage, and you never contact me again." "Dad," Sarah said quietly, "why would you help her after everything?" "I'm not helping her. I'm helping Ryan. He doesn't deserve to suffer for his mother's schemes, or for yours." The papers were signed that afternoon. $25 million to Blackstone Properties for legitimate consulting work, $221,000 to clear Sarah's debts, and a legally binding agreement that Sarah and I would have no contact for 24 months. As everyone prepared to leave, Sarah approached me one last time. "Dad, I need you to know something. It wasn't always about the money. In the beginning, I really did just want you to be proud of me. I was always proud of you, Sarah, until you became ashamed of me. How do I fix this? You start by figuring out who you are when nobody's watching. When there's no one to impress, no status to gain, no money to chase, find that person and maybe we can talk again. And if I can't find her, then you'll have answered the most important question of all. Were you worth saving?" She left without another word. Ryan stayed behind for a moment. "Mr. Carter, I want you to know that I love your daughter. Not her family's money, not her connections, but her. The woman who stays up all night perfecting presentations, who volunteers at the literacy center on Saturdays, who cries at dog food commercials. That's the woman I married. Then help her find that woman again. I'll try, but I need you to know something. If she can't change, if she can't become the person she should be, I won't stay. I won't enable her the way my mother enabled my father's worst instincts. That's all I can ask. Monday morning at Pinnacle was exactly as brutal as Marcus had predicted. Sarah walked into an office where everyone knew what she'd said about her father, where everyone knew that the useless old man owned the company. The whispers followed her everywhere. Conversations stopped when she entered rooms. Lunch invitations dried up. She lasted 3 weeks before submitting her resignation. Marcus called me when it happened. "She's leaving, Mr. Carter, moving to Seattle. She got an offer from a small firm there, starting over." "Good. You don't want me to convince her to stay?" "No, she needs to build something without my shadow over it, whether she knows it or not." "You're a complicated man, Mr. Carter." "I'm a father who loves his daughter enough to let her fail, and hopefully learn." The months that followed were quiet. I sold the Chicago apartment and moved to Denver, buying a modest house in a neighborhood where nobody knew me. I set up a workshop in the garage, returning to tinkering with inventions like I had before everything changed. The Michael and Martha Carter Foundation launched with no fanfare, no press releases, no galas, no recognition. Just quiet grants to kids with big dreams and empty pockets. Kids who reminded me of Sarah before she lost her way. Ryan sent updates occasionally, brief emails telling me Sarah was adapting to Seattle, that she was seeing a therapist, that she'd joined a hiking club and was learning to define herself by something other than her job title. 8 months into the 2-year silence, I received a package. No return address, but I recognized Sarah's handwriting. Inside was a simple wooden picture frame she'd made herself. I could see the imperfections that showed it was handcrafted. In it was a photo I'd forgotten existed. Sarah, at age 7, sitting on my workbench, holding a wrench, her face covered in grease from helping me fix the car. We're both laughing. The note attached said simply, "I remember who she was. I'm trying to find her again." I hung the picture in my workshop, next to Martha's photo and my first patent certificate. Some days I'd look at it while working and wonder if that little girl still existed somewhere inside the woman who'd called me useless. A year and a half into our separation, Marcus Webb called with unexpected news. "Your daughter just did something remarkable," he said. "She's not supposed to have contact with Pinnacle." "She doesn't. But word travels in our industry. She just turned down a senior position at Morrison Consulting because she discovered they were planning to lay off their support staff. She actually told them that a company that doesn't value all its employees doesn't deserve her talents." That sounds like something her mother would have said. Martha must have been quite a woman. She was. She would have handled all of this better than I have. "I don't know about that. You've given your daughter something most parents can't, the chance to become who she's meant to be without the safety net of family wealth. That takes courage. Or cruelty. Sometimes they're the same thing." As the 2-year mark approaches, I find myself thinking about what comes next. Sarah has sent no more packages, no letters, no attempts at contact. She's honored the agreement completely. Ryan tells me she's different now, quieter, more thoughtful, less concerned with appearances. But trust, once broken, is like a welded joint that's failed. You can re-weld it, but it'll never be as strong as it was before. Yesterday, James Sullivan called with a question. "The 2-year agreement expires next week. Do you want me to send Sarah a letter letting her know she can contact you?" I thought about the little girl in the photograph, about the woman who'd stood in that ballroom and destroyed me for a laugh, about the person she might be becoming in Seattle. "No," I said. "If she wants to contact me, she'll do it without permission. That's how I'll know she's ready. And if she doesn't, then I'll have my answer. The truth is, I don't know if Sarah and I will ever repair what's broken between us. The wedding that was supposed to celebrate new beginnings instead revealed old wounds. The moment she called me useless in front of Marcus Webb, she didn't just insult her father. She showed everyone who she really was, or who she'd become. The question now is whether she can become someone different, someone better, someone who values people for who they are, not what they can provide. The workshop is calling me now. I've got an idea for a new manufacturing process, something that could revolutionize how we recycle electronic waste. Martha always said I did my best thinking when my hands were busy and my heart was healing. Tomorrow marks exactly 2 years since Sarah and I signed those papers, 2 years since she learned that her useless old man owned her company. 2 years since her carefully constructed world collapsed. Will she reach out? I honestly don't know. But I've learned something important. Being called useless by someone you love either breaks you or reveals just how useful you really are. And sometimes, the most useful thing a father can do is step back and let his daughter learn who she really is when nobody's watching, even if it means she might never come back. If you believe parents deserve respect regardless of their job or bank account, hit subscribe right now. Only people like Sarah who value money over family won't. Comment respect if you can't stand children who are ashamed of their hard-working parents. And hit that like button if you think calling someone useless says more about the speaker than the person they're insulting. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that real worth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in character.